Hello, my name is Ben Fox from IGS BIM Solutions, and today I'm going to take you through Woodform Architectural's Revit content for their concept click and expression cladding ranges. During the course of the video, you can also expect to gain a greater understanding of how IGS has created the content in a consistent manner. In addition, you can expect to learn about how to customize the Woodform product to your next project requirements. We are well aware that during the course of a project, your Revit content needs to allow you to work through the different stages, from design development right through to construction documentation. In light of this, we've created a selection of different types of Revit content that represent the Woodform product to assist you at those stages. This includes a basic materials library representing typical Woodform products, a selection of different 2D Revit families including profiles, a component library, a repeating detail library, and drafting views already pre-built. We've also included loadable families where you can create custom configurations in a 3D sense, which we'll explain later. In addition, we've created a variety of system families that allow you to really start to visualize, design, and document different curtain walls and slope glazing. Now, we've used slope glazing for horizontal applications and obviously curtain walls for vertical applications. We've also provided standard walls, which we'll explain later, but this is due to file size implications if you really want to run the walls around a very large building and still being able to schedule out what kind of quantities you need. And naturally, using system families, and in general as an IGS best practice, we have assembled all of this in a sample project so that we can provide you a visual overview of the products available, a documentation overview of how they'll perform in your project, and also how they'll schedule. Now, before we look at the Revit content in detail, I just wanted to bring to your attention the fact that yes, we have built a lot of constraints and pre-configured Woodform products into the Revit content that will allow you to assess the buildability of the Woodform solution that you're designing. But I just want to reiterate that Woodform Architecture have provided these generic solutions as a suggestion, as design assistance, but do not take responsibility for the suitability of the specific application to your project. So please take the time to review the latest product information on woodformarch.com. In addition to calling a technical consultant from Woodform that would be more than happy to assess your design and then to work out the optimal solution and take you through the process. We will now take a quick look at how the Revit content is delivered. You will note that it is split up into expression cladding and concept click ranges. First of all, here are the sample projects that hold all of the information. Here is where you really want to go to access the content. However, you can actually access all of the loadable family components in each of the ranges. Here you see the concept click families, and here you see the expression cladding families. As you can see, these individual loaded families include all of the 2D profiles and detail items, etc., as well as the 3D loadable families, but naturally not the system families as they have to reside in the project. You'll also note that the thumbnail images are all very consistent, and you'll find this across all of the content, that everything we've done, we have set out to make as consistent and easy to update and standardize to your firm requirements as possible. This comes right down to having to upgrade family naming conventions, as well as things like subcategories and shared parameter files. We will now take some time to look through the different Revit components that have been created for the Woodform library. We'll initially have a look at the Woodform library materials. As you can see here, a selection of Woodform materials have been created and have been done so in a very lightweight manner. The first thing to note is that we've put a Z underscore in front of all of the materials so that they don't pollute or overpopulate your Revit content library should you choose to transfer them all in. They should resolve at the bottom of your list due to that Z identifier. In addition, you'll note that they're relatively lightweight in terms of their creation, in that they use Autodesk native Revit materials appearance settings, and their basic graphic settings and the like have been set up without adding too much detail like the physical and thermal properties. In addition, there are URLs back from the materials to the specific ranges that the product comes from. This will allow you to scan through and have a look at actual images of the real finishes. The next item we'll have a look at is the profile families, of which there are 25 that represent the major components that make up the concept click and expression cladding ranges. So if we edit the family here, you will see that we have actually simplified their profiles by taking out any of the unnecessary curves, etc. And then these profiles form the building blocks behind the mullions and system curtain walls and slope glazing that are used further up the hierarchy chain within the Revit content. You'll note that all of the data has been filled out in a very consistent way. In addition, wherever possible, we have made these profiles parametric so they can change size without having to have too many multiple families representing the same family type, in this case the flute timber battens. Following on from the 2D profile families, we have also created 24 2D detail families that further enable project documentation. In addition, we have extrapolated on this and created 24 repeating details, which assist where multiple battens are required to be drawn in a 2D manner. The other aspect provided in a 2D format are all the pre-formatted sheets containing drafting views, repeating details, and other Woodform specific layouts that will assist you find typical scenarios that you can then relate and customize to your projects. Here they are demonstrated in exported PDF sheets. Now let's take a look at some of the 3D content. Now, as mentioned prior, we've broken up the sample projects to demonstrate the different profiles extruded out into 3D families in different formats, starting with what we call the single families, where we go through each range type. So we've got the acoustic blades, the aluminium battens, the timber battens, and this same kind of layout continues down the line here for the different family types. So as mentioned, single families are just the blades only. Complete systems also include the clips, as you can see them placed here for the concept clip, and they extrapolate out correctly by themselves in a parametric nature, which we'll show you in a moment. We then also have the curtain walls as discussed and the sloped glazing. What we'll do now is hone in on the single blades. We'll have a look at the aluminium ones because they have a bit of internal detail as well. And what you're probably thinking here is, gee, they're quite detailed, but you'll be pleased to know that we've controlled the level of detail with the level of detail settings down here. But what we're thinking is that fine, you can create some typical detail scenarios of where you have different battens coming in at different configurations, but we don't expect you to array these battens out 1,000 times to create your curtain walls. That's obviously where your curtain walls come in, because that would really affect project performance. But the good news is, if you're not wanting to go at a tight detail and you are wanting to array a few of these out and come back at say a 1 to 20 or 1 to 50, you can actually adjust the detail level. And here you'll see a medium level of detail, and here you'll see a coarse level of detail. So this is across the board, and you can see that for all the loadable families, this is the kind of result you get, and hence project performance fixer, and you're not going to get grey or black blobs in your projects when you come to print them. So I'll go back to fine, and I might move along to one of the timber battens just to show you also the metadata that we've put into each family. As mentioned prior when we looked at some of the profiles, we've got all of your key parameters that'll help you specify the product, and again, they are parametric in nature, adjusting in size based on the profile being adjusted. The next thing we'll look at is what happens when you adjust their length, and can you adjust their length? The answer is yes, and we shall demonstrate that here. I can actually just grab the pull handle and drag this out. Now they actually have inbuilt maximums built in with a warning. So you can see here I've dragged this out. The clip spacing has updated accordingly, but I've gone past the maximum length where it says contact Woodform outside of this feasibility. So these smarts are built into the families, and please be aware of them. and consult the documentation on the Woodform website and the most up-to-date brochures, or contact Woodform directly if you need to go outside of these tolerances. Now, if you're wondering what the maximum length of these products is, you can see in here that it is a instance parameter, and the length that we've dragged to is 4.1 meters, but the actual maximum down here is 3.6 meters. So that will give you an idea as you're documenting these single families, what kind of length you can achieve. The curtain wall families, just like the loadable families, have been pre-configured with all the different profiles. The slope glazing, on the other hand, has got one typical profile, but each batten can be swapped out to create all the different ranges. The reason why we haven't included all of them is a simple case of file size, because there is a couple of hundred of families in here, and you'll note that the file size of the project is already getting quite up there. But the process in order to get this into my project is simply a case of copy and paste the family. I'll just do it in the same project to give you an idea, or the usual transfer project standards function. Here is a project I created earlier that contains a few Woodform products, and we'll use this as an example for creating some new variations of the product. So if I draw a new screen here, and if I now click on the screen, I have all of my standard curtain wall functionality available to me. So I'm going to duplicate this screen, and then I'm going to change the spacing. So if I change the spacing to say 250, we'll now get 250 mil spacing. Now, if I want to change this from a vertical orientation to a horizontal orientation, I simply adjust the vertical grid to the horizontal grid. Now that I've adjusted the parameters accordingly and I hit apply, I have to delete the grid lines that were running vertically before. And now I have my horizontal orientation. Another aspect with the curtain wall is that I am able to adjust the size of it, adjust the profile, and start to create some funky shapes. Obviously, once you start to add curves, you start to get some interesting warnings, and you really need to check what you're actually producing and make sure it's possible to be actually built as per Woodform's requirements. But you can even start to punch holes and do other things in your cladding systems. This same process is exactly how I've created this custom curtain wall in the corner. Now that I've isolated the curtain wall, you will see how I've created it from various different curtain wall segments. But what I want to demonstrate to you here is that I can now grab individual curtain wall elements, the battens, and start swapping those out for different sized battens. This starts to allow me to make some really interesting combinations and to start to really change the look of the system that I'm trying to achieve. As you can imagine, the different variations and opportunities to make custom solutions are only up to your imagination. The only other caveat is it must be able to be built according to Woodform, so make sure you check it to their literature. Now I'm going to illustrate another thing that you can do relative to batten spacing, and that is actually adjust it one batten at a time, so they don't all have to be the same. So if I update the spacing to be 300 millimeters, and then if I select multiple battens, I can actually unpin those just like we did before. I could then change the batten size. Let's actually get a little crazy here just for the illustrative purposes and put on some acoustic battens. But I can also then grab the grid lines that those battens are associated to, unpin them, and then adjust their spacing manually. So if I change this to 8 degrees, you'll see it gets a lot closer. And if I do the same here, additionally, I can actually add more grids. So you can actually see it adding more And in this case, it's adding the default button, but I could obviously override those as well. So you can pretty quickly get an idea that you can get as custom as you want. But again, it must be able to be built by Woodform. All of this same functionality can be applied to their slope glazing. So here we have a slope glazing, and in this case it's their acoustic panel. And again, we can punch holes in it, and we can adjust its overall size as required. So again, you're only limited by your imagination. Another aspect of the Woodform Revit content I want to draw your attention to, relative to the concept click range, is the Antrax fixing system. These aluminium tracks are fixed to the substrate of your project, and then the concept click buttons are affixed to it. As demonstrated in the Revit project, we have modeled a selection of Antrax product at different sizes, ready for your use in the project. Again, just like demonstrated before, the orientation of the Antrax and the spacing can be customized as required to match your project needs and the concept click specifications. In order to marry an Antrax system to a concept click button system, all you will do will be to copy and paste the two components into your project and then bring the two into alignment. In this case, I'm going to do it simply by isolating two of them in the project and demonstrating accordingly. Once the two have been brought together, you will then be in a position in your project to marry the Antrax to the substrate in your project and organize the spacing accordingly. You will note that we have not included the concept click clips in the curtain walls in the project, as the file size would have been too large, so they have been left out. However, typical 2D details have been included in addition to the standalone loadable Revit families, where you can create a typical 3D scenario, but simply for the file size implications, these have been left off. I hope this video has given you some good insights into the Woodform Revit content library. I also hope it has inspired you to thinking about some ways and ideas in which you can use the Woodform product range on your next project. Thank you very much for your time.